Tony winner Jayne Houdyshell is a New York stage stalwart. Growing up with a love of performing in Topeka, Kansas, she took on hundreds of roles in regional theater productions way before she got to Broadway. Now Houdyshell is starring in Sam Gold's mammoth staging of King Lear alongside the legendary Glenda Jackson. Hear about Houdyshell's laser focus backstage, which Broadway power player shared the stage with her growing up, and more on this week's Show People. Welcome to Show People, Jayne.
Hey, thank you, Paul.
I'm so happy you're finally here.
Me too.
I mean, I'm such a fan, and I love when you are around, and you're around right now. You're
Yes.
in this mammoth production of King Lear. I mean, it's
Yes.
I guess the play is sort of a mammoth Shakespearean play. Are you having fun?
Yeah, you know, people, when we were rehearsing and stuff, people would ask that question, and I'd say, are you nuts? It's King Lear. How can you have fun? It was really hard work to rehearse. Actually, now that we're open, I can say that doing the play, it still isn't fun, but it is deeply pleasurable.
Mm-hmm.
And the company is fun.
It seems like an amazing group.
Wonderful group of people.
Yeah.
We all appreciate and love each other and care about each other and have a good time.
There's one name that a lot of people are talking about. It's Glenda Jackson.
Oh, yes.
Yes, she's
Heard of her.
Yeah, you've heard of her.
Yeah.
Actually, you heard of her when you were a kid, right?
I grew up in Topeka, Kansas.
Right.
And knew that I wanted to be an actor at a surprising young age for having grown up in Topeka, Kansas. And by the time I was in high school, I was firmly entrenched.
You were in like everything,
yeah.
Sounds like.
But I remember seeing MARAT on PBS when I was 15. That production just blew me out of the water because I didn't know until that moment that theater could be that. Glenda Jackson was so unique in that production, and that was my first exposure to her. And then, of course, I continued to see her films as she worked through that amazing film career that she had. But she was very inspiring to me as a really young, aspiring actress who didn't know much about anything at that point. I was, really thirsty for all sorts of experiences, and she was definitely mind-blowing to me.
So when did you first actually get to meet her face to face?
They had a workshop prior to rehearsals, but I was out of town at the time, so I wasn't able to be there for that. So I guess I met Glenda like day 5 of rehearsals.
Okay.
Yeah. But, I have to go back, because I did meet her actually when she was doing Three Tall Women.
Right.
Just briefly to say hello, and I was kind of starstruck and
do you still get starstruck? Is it intimidating?
inarticulate. Totally.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. I was that 15-year-old kid when I, saw her.
It just all comes back.
Yeah.
And does she know that this recording of the play was actually so important to you as a kid? I mean, does she understand?
She didn't find that out until we were doing an interview together.
Okay.
And I told the story. But I'm sure she's heard that from many people, you know. Because Beth Marvel was also doing that interview, and her first experience of Glenda was seeing her in Strange Interlude, and that was life-changing for her. So we both had our little stories about seeing Glenda.
Now you're just like colleagues.
Yes, we are.
Colleagues doing Lear.
We are.
Gender-bending Lear.
And I have to say that I really, really appreciate and enjoy her very much. She's a lovely, lovely person to be on stage with, and an incredible co-worker in the rehearsal room.
I don't think any of us saw this coming, this like sort of Glenda Jackson renaissance. I didn't know that she'd be back on Broadway.
Yeah, I think the truth is for Glenda is that she loves hard work. More challenging the thing, I think, the more thrilled she is to be doing it.
How about you? Do you like hard work?
I do like hard work.
Yeah.
I do.
Sam Gold, your director, is a very experimental guy. I mean, he's a really brilliant visionary. And I know you worked with him on one of my favorite plays in recent memory, A Doll's House Part 2.
Yes.
Fantastic play. And that was a great experience for you.
It was so much fun.
I mean, that was really electric,
Yeah.
that show. What does he like to work with?
He's totally lacking in pretense and very down to earth with people. But he's just madly creative, and he is always looking for a way in to plays, particularly on revivals, I think, that break rules, and kind of shake up people's previous notions of what a particular piece is, and requires them to look at it through a different lens. He's very good at that.
Is it light backstage with this company? I mean, it's a long night.
Yes, it is.
Are you? Do you have to get a lot of energy? Do you have? Are you getting a proper amount of sleep? Is there a routine to sort of do a big play like this?
Yeah, we all have to kind of rest up, definitely. It's getting easier now that we are no longer rehearsing as well.
Right.
During the preview periods, that was a really exhausting time for all of us. But the atmosphere in the wing space is quite congenial and sometimes rather lighthearted and fun. I happen to, because the trajectory that I have in the play, I have a lot of little entrances and exits, pretty much interspersed throughout. Right. And I live in terror of missing an entrance. So I sit backstage for the whole show every night and listen to the play and watch it on the monitor.
You're like watching it with the audience, basically.
Basically, yes,
and listening. Like, I'm going to go and be in it now. I'm going to watch it and I'm going to be in it.
Yes, I'm going to. I am listening to the audience and I'm listening to my coworkers simultaneously every night, and I love doing that. I mean, I often do that with plays. I just find a chair in a corner and sit there and listen. I find it educational. And very interesting to kind of see the growth and gestation of a production over time. That fascinates me.
And you love theater. I mean,
I do.
You're a real theater artist.
I do.
How's it feel now that like you are such a part of this community, and you have directors and producers that want to work with you and keep working with you? I mean, that must just feel amazing.
It feels. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah.
For so many years, for over 25 years, I worked in regional theater, and there were a circle of artistic directors and designers and actors that I worked with in kind of concentric circles around the country, you know, and that was its own community and life for me. And then I made the leap. I made the decision to focus on working in New York, and there was a period of time where I thought it would never happen. It was very hard to get established, and to be doing that like when I was in my late 40s. People like to use who they know. You know, that's true anywhere. People started getting to know my work, and I started getting to know people in the industry here. That was a real relief for me.
Okay, well, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna dig back and find out more about all that. We'll be back with more Jayne Houdyshell. Back with Jayne Houdyshell, currently starring opposite Glenda Jackson. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
And King Lear. I want to talk about Buzz and Luella.
Oh.
Buzz and Luella of Topeka, Kansas, right?
Yes.
Your parents.
Yes, my mother and father.
Are either of them still with us?
No, they've been gone for a while.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me, what did they do? Tell me about, I want to hear about, you actually grew up on a farm, right, for part of your childhood?
Yes, but my parents weren't farm people. They didn't farm. We rented the house. It was just where we happened to live. And but my father sold men's clothes, and my father had a store for a time, and she helped him in the store. And then when he stopped that, he worked in another clothing store, and my mother continued to work as a secretary. And I had 3 older sisters, and I was kind of a surprise, and they were older than I. So I was kind of, I was not a neglected child per se, but I was kind of left to my own devices. Okay. And so, there was no neighborhood with other children to play with. So I developed my imagination very early on. And loved pretending to be other people.
I've read about this.
Yes.
I've read about some of the people you were.
Yes.
I read that you were Helen Keller for a while.
A while, yes. Yeah, I got very enamored with the story because of Miracle Worker, which was the film, which was astounding to see as a child, to know that there was a child actor that could do that. Right. And I was terribly jealous of Patty Duke. And but also I read a biography of her, and the story just I found very inspiring. So I would turn out the lights in my room and, you know, be blind for hours at a time. And I'm very serious about it. I was very serious about the work. You know?
Well, it clearly paid off. So,
yes.
I mean, it worked out. So you would be
Full
in this
circle
dark
moment
room.
here. Yes.
And doing what? Just
Stumbling around, basically. Having tantrums. Acting out the
Sure.
play.
Wow. By yourself.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then also the Little House, Laura and Little House
Yes,
was another one of your.
I don't know where you've done your research, young man, but
Little House on the Prairie.
yes, the Laura Ingalls Wilder's books were very influential. I had a second grade teacher who read the whole series to us over the course of the school year, and I loved those books. So yeah, I played Laura Ingalls Wilder for a very long time.
When did theater come into your life? Because I know that when you were in high school, it sounds like you did a lot of shows.
I did.
Characters of all different age ranges, it sounds like.
Yes.
How did this turn into theater, and what was like your first thing you did in theater? And
when I was 12, my mother gave me a guitar.
Oh.
Bless her heart. Her fantasy was that one day I would play Maria von Trapp.
Never happened?
It didn't happen. But nevertheless, I learned to play the guitar, and this was in the mid-'60s. And so it was like something that kids weren't quite doing then, my age, and it was a very cool thing to do. So I learned to play folk music and sang. And someone in the local community theater heard me and asked me to join a production they did on Saturday nights of melodrama, and they had oleo acts afterwards. And so I would go in on Saturday nights at 11 p.m. My mother would drive me into town. I'd go in, I'd put on costume and makeup, go out with my guitar, sit on a stool and sing Yesterday, and then take my costume off and go back and get in the car, and mother would drive me home. And
that was your first sort of performance?
That was my stage experience.
With the lights on?
Yes.
Right.
And then the next summer there was a a teenage youth group kind of theater company that was doing a production of Enter Laughing, which I auditioned for and was cast at the age of 14 as the Jewish mother. Perfect. Because I'd been listening to Funny Girl, so I had the accent down. And my mother said I was very good in that. And this little summer theater group was for kids between 14 and 18, and we totally were self-generating. There were no adults really in charge, and we'd do a play a summer and produce ourselves. And by the time I was 16, I was the artistic director of that group, and I directed You Can't Take It With You that summer.
Wow.
Yeah, the summer before we did David and Lisa.
It's a very complex play.
Yes, and then in high school I did a lot.
Yeah, and then Madame Arcadi, right? Wasn't that one of your famous
Yes, when
turns?
I was 15.
Yeah, and that character is how old? I mean, didn't Angela Lansbury play her last time on?
Yeah, she's a 60-year-old woman. Again, my mother said I was very good. She
I'm
could
sure.
hear every word.
So your mother was a big fan of all of this?
Yeah, she was. She was very supportive.
Yeah.
Bless her.
Yeah, so she would have loved that you're now with Glenda Jackson. I mean,
she would be very happy.
It's
yes.
very exciting. Yeah. But it seems like you maybe grew into your roles. Are you one of those actors, like when you were a kid or you were playing people much older than was that sort of the roles that you were always getting?
Yeah, yeah.
You clearly had a lot of authority.
I guess so, and I think I was quirky.
It's a big chunk of your life before you actually got to Broadway, and your Broadway debut was in Lisa Kron's Well, which was fantastic.
That's right.
But there's such a career in there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you know people in theaters all around the country.
I do know a lot of people.
It's amazing to think about how that all adds up. I can't imagine what your Facebook friends list is like.
I'm not on Facebook.
Well, okay. Well, if you were, it'd be horrible. You wouldn't be able to keep up with all the updates. But I mean, you know a lot of people. A lot of people have worked with you, and you're kind of like this glue in this theater world.
It's interesting, yeah, and it was never a plan. It's not like I sat down and had things mapped out for myself at all. One job just kind of led to the next. Having grown up in the Midwest, and I didn't have a frame of reference for New York or LA or anything, and I went to school, acting school in Detroit, and right out of acting school, I married an actor that I'd met in Summerstock in Illinois, and he and I worked in Iowa and Illinois for 6 years in small theaters. We actually helped build a theater in Iowa in a town of 200.
Is it still there?
It is. It's a full equity company that's still there 45 years
What's
later.
it called?
the old Creamery Theater Company.
And Jayne Houdyshell helped build it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I learned how to sheetrock
Wow.
working at that theater, yes. and did a lot of non-equity summer stock and dinner theater in the Midwest. And then in 1980, I moved to New York. But at that point, I really wasn't ready for New York. I went there because that's what you did, but I had $250. I'd never been east of Detroit. I knew one person. I wasn't prepared for what
This is
New
what,
York
like
was.
early 80s?
1980.
Okay.
I was 27 years old. And so I started auditioning for the larger LORT regional theaters and working. And those jobs just snowballed one into the next, And I loved that life because I was usually hired to do multiple shows, and it would be a wide range of roles and good parts in interesting places with interesting actors and directors. And I was able to support myself as an actor. And that was really my measure of success.
Right.
So it was a very happy time until eventually I burned out on the itinerateness of it. And I wanted to be in one place and work in one place. And I also wanted to do new plays.
Right.
And I figured the only place to do that was New York.
New York. Now we have you.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to talk about your New York adventure when we come back. More Jayne Houdyshell. Back with Jayne Houdyshell. You know, I wonder how many people watching this actually know you're Madame Morrible. What'd you do with all that Madame Morrible money? Madame Morrible was like a good gig.
It was a great gig.
In Wicked, of course.
Yes, it was. It was the first time I had actually ever saved money from a job.
I figured it must have been that kind of moment
I had surplus. I wasn't just paying the bills. I had surplus. And because of that, I was able to leave my one-room studio in Inwood that I'd been in for 27 years and move downtown to a larger apartment.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are you still in that apartment?
I am.
I'm sure you must be very sensible though, because, you know, I mean, I know that you are making a great living now as an actor on Broadway and film and TV. Do you think you have a different mentality than someone who maybe when they were 20 years old got cast as Glenda and then went on a path of Broadway?
Completely different perspective, yeah. I lived very close to the bone for most of my adult life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you still kind of do.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't consider myself an extravagant person.
Right. You are an actress who has had great success, especially recently in musicals and plays. And you actually told me that you did a lot of sort of the classic musicals coming up.
Yes, when I was a kid, back in the Midwest, before I moved to New York.
So let's wow people with some of those. You are a Broadway baby, and you sang Broadway Baby in Follies. You were fantastic. one of your many Tony nominations. You did a bunch of the classics.
Yes, I did. I mean, in summer stock, in non-equity stock, I was able to do, I played Fanny in Funny Girl.
Nice.
And I played Lola and Damn Yankees.
Sexy.
And Adelaide and Guys and Dolls.
I love her.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And I did Desiree in Night Music.
Okay.
And I did La Lume and Kismet.
Wow. Have you done a cabaret act of all these? Why don't you revisit?
No, I do not.
Let's revisit all these. I want to see all these with full costumes.
My range went from that to this. So.
But actually, fun story, you played Dolly.
I did.
In Hello, Dolly.
I did.
And, you know, Dolly has a great Act 2 number, right? She shows up at Harmonia Gardens.
Of course. The title number.
The big title number, big moment. Did you have a red dress?
I did have a red.
What did it look like in summer stock?
It was fantastic, actually.
Yeah. And then there's a bunch of waiters who are very excited to see you.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Lovely young men.
How were there any talented guys in that cast?
They were all very good, but there was one in particular that actually was not really cut out to be a waiter.
Really?
Particularly a singing and dancing one. But later in the summer, I did Equus with him, and he played the boy, and he was stellar in that part.
Okay, that's an important role.
Very important role.
Yeah.
But in Hello, Dolly, he did fine. His name was Joey Mantello.
Joey Mantello.
He was 18 years old.
Wow. What was teen?
From Rockford, Illinois.
Now, Tony-winning Joe Mantello, famous director who you've worked with.
Yes.
Yeah, what was he like then?
He was a really good, very sweet guy, and a brilliant young actor. He had not been trained much at that point. He had virtually no technique. But as I said, when we did Equus, he was raw. He was emotionally available. I mean, all of us were just kind of slack-jawed at his work, and we all thought, he's going to go somewhere.
Wow.
And boy, did he ever.
And he's doing very well for himself.
He's done very nicely.
And so you talk about sort of making the decision to come to New York and say, you know, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And Lisa Kron, this play, Well, which was based on her life, right?
Yes, her relationship with her mother.
Yeah, and you played her mother, and that was sort of a long journey to Broadway. And it did get to Broadway. It started at the Public Theater, but it did get to Broadway.
Beautiful journey.
Got you your first Tony nomination. I mean, a Broadway debut, Tony nomination.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yes, at the age of 52.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
And then you told me that Joe Mantello came to see it.
Yes, and he came backstage and was very nice. And then the next thing I know, he called me about doing Madame Horrible and Wicked. It was very exciting, and I was very grateful to Joe for the job.
Yeah, that seems like it was a big turning point.
Yes.
I mean, like really into the Broadway scene.
And then I really got to work with him as a director on The Receptionist, which I did at AMTC, and then, of course, The Humans. And I really think the world of his incredible artistry.
The Humans, that was a fantastic play, Stephen Karam's play, which you won your Tony Award for. And now there's a movie happening.
Yes.
And you've been announced that you are the cast member from the Broadway production that will be in the film. That doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't. And I feel extremely fortunate.
Are you excited to jump into that with
Yes, I am.
Into that role again?
Yes, I am. I haven't actually let it completely sink in yet. I found out about it a few months ago, but I was so fixated on Lear, and I am not a multitasker. I'm not a person who can juggle multiple projects simultaneously, and so I really am like an old dray horse with blinders on, and I just plod one foot in front of the other, and I was working on Lear. Now that Lear is opened, I'll start thinking about relearning The Humans, and yes, I'm sure it will be very interesting and exciting.
Yes, so obviously your year is kind of figured out, right? Which is nice as an actor. You know your next thing, and
and that's always a wonderful feeling.
Yeah,
to know what's coming up next.
Right. What are the goals? What do you want to achieve? Do you want to just
keep working?
Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Just keep plugging away.
Yeah, that's what I've always done. One foot in front of the other.
I love it. One foot in front of the other. Well, I love watching you put one foot in front of the other.
Thank
you. It's so nice to get to sit and talk with you.
It's lovely to
I hope
chat
that we
with
can
you.
do it again soon.
Okay.
Everyone, go see King Lear at the Court Theater because Jayne gets to star with Glenda Jackson.
I do.
Something you never thought would happen.
I know. That's unbelievable. That doesn't quite sound true.
It's a thing. She knows who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jayne.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.